our goals here. Again, Charlie, myself, and Matt. These are our numbers. These are our emails. So anytime you want to talk football or shoot us an email, a text, just don't hesitate to do so. We just are excited about getting these off and running and having a good quality off season of good quality topics. Again, we want this to be open discussion. Please, if you please talk. If you have a question, don't hesitate to answer it. This is an opportunity for all officials to really engage. And maybe you feel embarrassed asking a question. You're not going to feel embarrassed here. Please ask the questions. Ask specific rule questions, mechanic questions. We've got a ton of people in this meeting with a ton of experience. So please, if it's not been seen, it probably will never happen. I want to say that from the experience that we have of the people in this meeting session. Not necessarily me, Charlie, and Matt. I'm saying, we got John Urich on the line. We got Joe Cooley. We got a lot of experience on the line here. So a lot of feedback from anything that you may want to question or discuss. Folks, you can select rules that you want to discuss for the upcoming season. Please, shoot Charlie, Matt, myself a text, an email, let us know. And really, like, for open discussion, I want to say, let's get good active participation from everybody. Don't hesitate to unmute yourself and ask a question or even a comment for that matter. So we've discussed using huddle. Tonight we're going to discuss UNSs versus personal fouls. The next meeting in April, we're going to have John Urich talk about "Don't Be That Guy." So we're excited about that coming up. We're going to have a presentation on identifying unusual plays and just talking through them. So we're looking forward to that in a couple of weeks. And we discussed a little bit in our first meeting about potential rule changes, but hopefully by the end of this, by the time we get into the season or a couple weeks before the season, we'll have the rule book. We'll have the rule book written, and we can really discuss things that are interpreted from the new rule changes. Fouls on change of possession and inadvertent whistles, and our schedule, like we said, we did huddle the last meeting. Tonight we're going to do personal fouls versus unsportsmanship. Matt's going to talk to us. We got John talking to us on the 3rd, and we're going to skip Easter, and then we'll go 2 weeks after that, and we've got Tim Linkenheimer. He's going to talk about unusual plays. So we're looking forward to those upcoming topics. And we have I have some guys that are interested in presenting some good topics, and we'll get to those future meetings. If you guys have, and ladies haven't written this down, this is our training site that we have. A lot of good information on there, PowerPoints, PDFs. There's a lot of video on there that you're more than welcome to use at your meetings. Don't hesitate. Take anything you want off of that training site, but don't hesitate to use whatever's there. We put it out there to be used by our members and really any member through the WPIL, any football official. Tonight's presenter, Matt Shipton. I'm going to turn it over to him in a moment. He's going to be talking about unsportsmanship fouls versus personal fouls. I took a look at his PowerPoint, and it is really full of some great information. So moving forward, I'm going to turn it over to my good friend, Matt. Matt, let me stop sharing here, and it's all you.
Great. Thank you, Bill. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right, hopefully that's sharing for everybody. Today we're going to talk about Rule 9, unsportsmanlike conduct versus personal fouls. hopefully be able to provide some clarity. I think many times we get caught up in the common sense definition of the rules. For example, blasting a player out of bounds or shoving a player. Certainly that is conduct that is unsportsmanlike, not sporting, and shouldn't be part of the game. However, as many longtime officials know, our little handy rule book that we have sometimes doesn't go by common sense. And those types of penalties, frankly, are not unsportsmanlike fouls. And hopefully at the end of the presentation, we'll be able to provide some clarity. Bill mentioned open discussion. I'm going to be able to share a fair amount of film, though I will say it was difficult to find unsportsmanlike conduct fouls at the high school level. I think a lot of that has to do with people. I think a lot of that has to do at times because huddle gets shut off. But I did find a really nice tape from 2010, a college tape. I don't know if Joe Kulik's on tonight, but all the officials are wearing knickers. So I should get some enjoyment out of that. Many of the fouls on that tape, I think we will find that probably shouldn't have been called, or maybe they were told to call those fouls. But I think in the way that we want fouls to be called going forward, we probably shouldn't call those fouls. So let me go ahead, share my presentation. We'll go through it. Get this up here. All right. So the overview for tonight, we're going to talk philosophy. We're going to talk about, when we should throw those unsportsmanlike conduct fouls, why we should throw them. I did get a chance to talk to Brian a good bit, and he gave me some feedback from the ADs, particularly at 5, 6A, and some of the other groups that he works with. And the biggest thing that he hears from the ADs, frankly, is consistency and making sure that if a guy's being thrown out, that it's for the right reason. And I'll touch on some of that here in the presentation. We'll look at the definitions, the rulebook definitions of the fouls. We'll talk a little enforcement. Hopefully we never have to use this, but if you do, I will briefly read the PIAA special enforcement and then get into the videos. So philosophy. First and foremost, particularly for unsports or personal fouls, player safety is number one. People that have officiated over the last years, we've seen numerous changes in the rules emphasizing player safety. I think we have a new one coming this year on changes to the blocking below the waist, but we've seen it in the past with blindside blocks and other roughing fouls that, player safety is number one. And we really need to pay special attention to that, both during live ball and dead ball officiating. Number two, football's fun and emotion. Don't be a Karen out there as an official. Have a thick skin. I think a lot of times we can do some preventative officiating to prevent certain things from breaking out. If a coach has a question, he gets a little hot-tempered. I'll touch on that later on in the presentation. Just answers questions. There's a respectful way to do that. The respect goes mutual ways. But I think sometimes we need to develop a little thicker skin out there. Make it big, especially for ejections. Let there be no doubt that as to why that particular player has been thrown out. Make sure that if it's a punch, it's a punch. And speaking of that, fighting, for those that attended Norwin last week, Brian touched on this a little bit. If it's a fight, make sure it's a fight. And that means, closed fists, punches going back and forth. If player A shoves player B in the chest and player B responds by shoving him open-handed to the face, that is not a fight. That's, dead ball, personal fouls, flag them both, and move on. By fight, we want, closed fists, guys throwing punches, action taking place that means that they deserve to be disqualified from the games, or they have disqualified themselves from the game. Again, open hand shove is not fighting. Be vocal. I think particularly on dead ball officiating, I'll show a play. And again, plays that we show, it's by no means to single anybody out. I've selected some plays from some of my games. But there's a couple plays, and Brian has some good film where had the official come in and maybe hustled a little bit more, probably could have defused that situation before punches were thrown and things got out of hand. So just something to keep in the back of your mind. And know the situation. Was that particular comment directed at another player, coach, official? Was that gesture directed directly at another player, coach, or official? If a kid misses the game-winning pass and yells, "Oh, F," but it's not directed at anybody, don't, throw the unsportsmanlike comment. Just talk to the kid. Say, "Hey, tough play, move on. Appreciate you not using that language out here again." There's no reason. Now, if he turns around to the defender after he missed it and said, "F you" or something like that, then obviously you want to get that one as the unsportsmanlike foul. So on to the definitions. Illegal personal contact, the personal fouls. This is both for a player and non-player. Just to touch on, these are things that include anything that involves contact from the standpoint that it is illegal, Rule 9-4, particularly fighting, striking an opponent with hands, forearms, elbows, contacting a game official, kicking an opponent, throwing them to the ground after the play, piling on, tripping, throwing a helmet at another player, hurdling. I believe in college they refer to this next one as leaping, but using the body of an opponent or teammate to gain an advantage. The linebacker decides to use the lineman for leverage and jump over top to try to block the field goal. Those are things you can't do. All illegal personal contact fouls. Contact that is unnecessary or excessive that incites roughness. This is 943G. That's a good one to remember and always have in your back pocket as an official, because if the coach starts, "Oh, what he do, coach, 943G, contact that is unnecessary or excessive that incited roughness." And, when you start throwing the actual number of the ruling out to them, coaches have a tendency to pay a little closer attention and, leave you alone. So that's a good one to kind of keep in the back of your pocket. Illegal helmet contact. This is the butt blocking, spearing, face tackling, things of that nature. Horse collar tackle, targeting and blindside blocks. We spent a lot of time on that over the years recently. I'm sure we'll spend more time on it as we move forward into our training sessions. Yeah, here. All the roughing fouls, snapper, passer, holder, all those good things. I did select two that I want to point out and talk about in a little more in depth, and those are the face mask penalties. 943H, grasping an opponent's face mask, and this is key because a lot of times I've heard officials say in the past, "Well, he didn't grab his face mask, so it's not a foul," and that's just not the case. It's the face mask, any edge of the helmet opening, the chin strap, tooth and mouth protector, anything attached to the face mask, twist, pulls, turns, any of those, and takes his helmet off. So if the kid's in the ear hole, he's up underneath the helmet and he's ripping at the helmet, those are fouls that we need to throw. And again, that's the whole player safety aspect of it. It's not just limited to that steel face mask material. It's the helmet openings, the chin straps, any of that stuff that can hurt another opponent. The other one that I want to touch on, and this one came in a couple of years ago, and I think there's some confusion on this, how it gets enforced, how it applies to the unsportsmanlike penalties and sideline warnings, and I'm hoping to provide some clarity on this one. This is that 948, the unintentional contact between a non-player and a game official while the ball is live in that restricted area. We know that restricted area is the white area from the sideline all the way around the field. If you contact any non-player, coach, what have you, in that area, it is a foul. And that first offense is 15 yards exceeding spot. The second offense is 15 yards exceeding spot foul and a disqualification of the head coach. You do not have to hit the head coach on that second one for him to be disqualified. It can be any non-player, player, anyone in that restricted area. However, if you hit a photographer that's in that area or an assistant coach, especially that second time, that does get applied to the head coach, and he is subsequently disqualified from that fact. Now, I had a chance to talk to Brian a little bit about this one. As a wing official, you want to stay on top of your sidelines, keep your sidelines clear. If you're running downfield and you see that coach in that area, and if you can avoid him at all possible, try to avoid him. Then come back that next play and say, Coach, this could have been a very bad situation. I could have ran into you. That's a 15-yard foul. And if you get a second one, your head coach would be disqualified. And you've now, by doing that, you now kind of have that coach in your back pocket, probably for the rest of the game or up until the next bad call somebody has. But we know how that goes. But at least you showed him that, hey, you presented this situation, you're able to avoid it, you've gone back and, you've dealt with it. Now, if that person's in that area and you don't see them and you run them over, by all means, please throw that foul, because that is safety. First and foremost, your safety, the coach's safety, everyone's safety. They need to know that they cannot be in that area. As I said, doesn't matter if that contact's with the head coach or not, that second one does get applied to the head coach. And this penalty is separate from any unsportsmanlike fouls. So even if a coach already has an unsportsmanlike foul on himself, having that first instance in this case does not disqualify him from the game. This is a illegal personal contact foul. It has nothing to do with unsportsmanlike penalties that have been applied to the head coach. This penalty is also separate from any sideline warnings. So don't try to, if you've already had 3 sideline warnings and you have this illegal personal contact foul, the head coach is not ejected. And I'll go over some of those situations on when we can and cannot eject the head coach later on. Enforcement, personal fouls can be both live ball or dead ball. If it's live ball, we're going to enforce it just as we would any other live ball foul. If live ball and dead ball personal fouls by the same team, we're going to enforce them both just like we would. If we have more than one dead ball foul by one team, we're going to enforce them all. That includes the unsportsmanlikes. In a situation where we have dead ball fouls by both teams, and this came into play a few years ago, those dead ball fouls with the 15-yard penalty by both teams, we will offset the yardage for those. So if team A commits 2 personal fouls and B commits 1 personal foul, one of those fouls will offset, and then we'll have the one that we're going to enforce. There's a number of examples in the case book. I think there's one play where there's 10 personal fouls called, 6 by one team, 4 by the other. 4 and 4 cancel out, and then you enforce the 2 that the team had. Only matching 15-yard fouls will offset. So here's an example. If A1 false starts and B2 blows them up with excessive force that is deemed unnecessary and results in a personal foul call, we will enforce that false start, and then we will enforce that dead ball personal foul on team B. So it's only going to be those matching dead ball 15-yard penalties that will offset each other. Note the special enforcements, and you guys can look them up in the book for any of the roughing fouls, passer, snapper, those things. So now, the non-contact unsportsmanlike. This refers to a player. The unsportsmanlike foul does not involve contact. If there is contact, the easiest way to differentiate, if there's contact, it's going to be a personal foul. Even fighting is listed as a personal foul. It is not an unsportsmanlike conduct foul. 2 unsportsmanlikes on the same player is an automatic disqualification out of the game. Depending on the unsportsmanlike that has occurred, the PIAA supplemental disqualification could apply. We'll touch on that briefly at the end. Examples of unsportsmanlike fouls include baiting or taunting, profanity, any vulgar languages or gestures, delayed, excessive, or prolonged act which players focus attention on themselves. I'll show some examples in the one video, as I mentioned. You make sure it's delayed, excessive, and prolonged. There's a couple fouls that I'll show that were called that were right in front of the official that I think, had the official just stepped in, probably could have been avoided. Leaving the field to gain an advantage, the old hideout plays, or unsportsmanlike conduct fouls, refusing an official's request, alcohol, tobacco, any of those things are all listed in the rule book as When a ball becomes dead in player possession, they shall not intentionally kick the ball, spike the ball, throw the ball high in the air, fail to leave the ball on the ground, or hand it to an official. So for these in particular, a kid makes a great play and he, tosses the ball over his shoulder or drops it to the ground with a little bit of force. I think those are good examples where we could do some preventative officiating and talk to the player. If he takes that ball and gives the old, refrigerator spike or throws it 50 feet up in the air, those are ones we want to get, to show some examples of those. But if it's a spike, make sure he spiked it. If he just makes a great catch and just kind of drops that ball forcefully behind him, talk to the kid, hey, go pick up that football, hand it to the official next time. Things like that. I think there's things we can do from a preventative officiating to try to avoid some of these.
Hey, Matt, one of those things, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
you see kids a lot more taking the ball back to the sideline with them. I usually just call that a delay. I don't normally call that an unsportsmanlike, but what's the opinion on that? Like they just want to celebrate with their team or whatever.
Yeah, a lot of times if he takes the ball and he's headed off to the sidelines, try to get it from him. If not, just look to the wing official and try to get a ball in. I know a lot of times they'll try to, especially on a scoring play, they'll try to bring another ball in for the PAT. So I think, hopefully the wing guy can catch him as he's heading to the sidelines and say, hey, we need, we got to keep playing. We need that ball. If not, get one from the ball boy if he's already gone past. I don't think we need to throw anything on that unless he's, says something on his way by. Don't be that guy. As I said, I think we're going to get a presentation on that here next week. I think there are a lot of things that we can look at in the rule book, but knowing situations and doing some preventative officiating, I think we can avoid a lot of things. Football's fun and emotional. Not saying we, anything like the what the NFL's letting players get away with, but if a group of players after a hell of a play are celebrating, get in there. Hey guys, get great play. Get back to your sideline. Let's move it along. Nothing too crazy. But if two guys come together in the end zone, and again, I'll show some clips. That's not a foul. Like just get them, move them on, get them out of the way. Especially if they're not directing anything towards any other players. It's nothing malicious. Let them have a little bit of fun. And again, does the crime fit the punishment? We want to get the big things and have some consistency in doing it. Enforcement, sportsmanlike conduct, it's always going to be enforced as a dead ball succeeding spot foul. If the example of kid running towards the end zone, he turns around and points to the defender as he backflips into the end zone. Unfortunately, at the high school level, even though that foul occurred in the field of play, it is an unsportsmanlike foul. That score will count, and then it will carry over. The other team will have the option, obviously, since it was a scoring play, to enforce it on the PAT or the subsequent kickoff after the fact. But any unsportsmanlike fouls are going to be enforced as a dead ball succeeding spot foul. Doesn't matter when that foul occurred. More than one dead ball foul by a team, you're going to enforce them all like we talked about. Again, fouls by both teams will offset and you'll enforce one. So again, if A commits 2 and team B commits 1, 1 and 1 will offset and we're only going to enforce the remaining foul. As I gave the example, some things to think about. And this gets into the philosophy and open discussion. If guys want to, chime in, please feel free. But A1's on a breakaway towards the end zone. He points to this guy in front of him. Is that, maybe the kid has a parent that passed away. We don't know. Is he doing anything crazy to draw attention to himself? Yeah. Now, if he turns around and points at B that's chasing him down, then absolutely. That's the type of unsportsmanlike foul we want to get. A1 drops a wide open TD pass. He yells a curse word. I think that's when we can come in and say, hey, come on, let's, not use that language out here, whatever. Now he yells that curse word directly at B2 or a game official. That's a different story. We definitely want to throw that flag. B1 makes a huge sack. He steps away from a player, celebrates with his teammates, heading to the sidelines, back to the huddle. Let the kids have a little bit of fun. Let that go. Now, he stands over player A and begins to flex over top of him. That's an unsportsmanlike foul. That's the type of fouls that we want to get.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
Would you say the TJ Watt celebration is excessive?
Where he's stepping and stomping around, and
Yes.
yeah, I think I would say it's probably a little excessive. He's drawing some extra attention to himself.
Okay.
Um,
I had that in the game last year. That's why I was asking.
yeah, I if he's just celebrating and jumping around, then I think let that go. But if he's doing some full on type of choreograph thing, then I think that's probably excessive. Non-contact unsportsmanlike fouls by non-players. No coach, substitute, athletic trainer, or other team attendant shall act in an unsportsmanlike manner once game officials assume authority. These include, very similar to what the player fouls were, profanity, vulgar language, attempting to influence a decision by a game official, illegal communication equipment, holding unauthorized conferences. This is one that I had actually fairly recently. Failure to be ready to start the game and on the field for the warm-up period to start the second half. This is one that I think referees can handle a lot leading up to the game. Make sure you're in contact with the ADs prior to the game. Hey, do we have anything special that we need to be aware of? Homecoming, special events, things like that. And then if you are in that situation, talk to the coaches for both teams. I had a situation this past year. They had a 30-minute halftime. We're at minute 27, and they're only halfway through announcing the band for some special recognition. It was a hell of a game. It was a very close game. I went and talked to the visiting team coach, told him the situation, talked to the coach, the head coach for the home team, and the visiting coach was very clear. He said, "Hey, I know that's a foul, but please don't throw that on them because I don't want to win like that or have that affect the game." So having that communication with him, I didn't throw it. We avoided the situation. And the coach of the home team was very grateful, very thankful, and they played on. But technically that is a foul, not coming down to the field, not being ready to start the game. A lot of players to use illegal equipment, again, the whole alcohol, tobacco thing. Now, things that are charged to the head coach. Their own unsportsmanlike foul, obviously, if they're berating you or doing things they shouldn't be and you throw an unsportsmanlike foul on them, that is on them. Not complying with the restrictions at the coin toss, that's also 322. You can read it in the rule book. Being ready to start the first half on the field for the warm-up period. As I said, use common sense in those types of situations. But that foul, if you do throw it, is charged to the head coach, and that is his already one unsportsmanlike. So if he gets one of those fouls prior to the game, he gets another one during the game as his second unsportsmanlike foul. He has now disqualified himself from the contest. Allowing players to use illegal equipment once they buy in at the coin toss or simulated coin toss with the PIAA mandate on equipment. If they're using anything illegal, then that unsportsmanlike foul goes on the head coach. If an assistant coach warrants an unsportsmanlike foul, that is charged to them, not the head coach. So make a record of who the assistant was, so-and-so, 6 feet with glasses, what have you, was the one. So if he gets another one, then that assistant coach is tossed. But those fouls belong to the assistant coach. Those do not get tacked on to the head coach. Give the head coaches a little leeway. If they have questions, try to answer their questions. Don't take too much from them, but I think that was one of the things that Brian mentioned were some complaints from the ADs that, coaches were saying, well, people have it out for me or this or that, which, again, it's coming from the coach, but again, let the coach get it out of their system and then try to talk to them. And that may be a good topic for later on, talking about how to handle head coaches, and we can have that discussion. But don't take crap from assistants. Say, hey, I'm only talking to the head coach. If an assistant gives you any crap, don't be afraid to go ahead and flag him and get that unsportsmanlike on him, because I think he'll learn very quickly, and also sets the precedent for that head coach to, hey, you got to get your sidelines under control. Things for disqualifying a head coach. In theory, before disqualification of a head coach, a team could have all of the following. They could have 2 sideline warnings. They could have their initial sideline warning and that 5-yard infraction for the sideline warning. They could have one unintentional personal contact foul. And the head coach could also have an unsportsmanlike foul. So you could have all of these things before you're going to disqualify that head coach. Now, in this situation, since the head coach already has one unsportsmanlike foul, if we have that third sideline violation, which results in that 15-yard unsportsmanlike being added to the head coach, that would then be his second unsportsmanlike foul. So he would be disqualified from the game. Since he's already gotten one for his behavior or whatever he did, he gets that third sideline violation that is an unsportsmanlike foul that is charged to the head coach. He would therefore be disqualified. Again, these are all separate from the unintentional contact sideline fouls that we previously discussed, as those, again, are personal fouls and not unsportsmanlike conduct. PIAA supplemental disqualification. Hopefully we don't have this. If you do, make it big. Two things that I can tell you that they came from Brian and the ADs directly. Make sure if you invoke this that whatever occurred did occur, and by God, it was just awful. Once that paperwork gets submitted to the PIAA, they cannot go back and undo it. And there are a number of examples out there. One I heard was that they even got some officials got the wrong number, implemented this, and it was the PIAA refused to change it. So once that bell has been rung, you cannot unring it. So if you're going to use this, make sure that that crime fits the punishment. And this is all on the PIAA website. You can read it, go through it. But it's basically, if you're ejecting a player, disqualifying him, it's a 2-game suspension for any coach or contestant who is ejected from that contest by a recognized official. Things can be confronting, contacting, or addressing a coach, contestant, or official, or foul. Vulgar language, have some thick skin on that one. If he, turns around and says things, particularly of an ethnic nature, to somebody, then yes, we should invoke this and make sure that we do. But it's 2 games in addition to the game that you disqualified them from. So if your football season's 9 games and this happens in the first quarter of 1 game, you've now lost the rest of that game plus 2 additional games. You've essentially lost a third of your season. So just keep that in mind. And all of this can be found on the PIAA website. All right, on to videos here.
Matt, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yes, please.
Going back to the celebrations by players,
Yes.
what about the first down signal?
In my opinion, I think that's okay. I don't know, Bill, Charlie, what do you guys think?
I would definitely talk to him before I flagged him. They see that on Saturdays, they see it on Sundays. I would definitely talk to him and say, hey, listen, not
Don't
here.
do it.
Not here.
Yeah. I think that's one. If he drops the ball, goes like this, talk to him. Hey, not out here, not today. And, kind of let that one go. The toughest thing about that is, and I hear it from Brian and what the AD said, is consistency, making sure that, if so-and-so throws it on team A and we don't throw it on team B, that's going to be a problem. So I think referees, you can do a good job of talking about these situations in your pregame, saying, hey, this is how we want to call these kinds of fouls. This is how we want to do it. All right. So,
Hey, Matt, to follow up on that real quick.
Yeah.
Consistency does go across the board. Because I was watching the state title games last year. They want uniform enforcement. I see all these T-shirts out hanging out, the back pads. I mean, everybody has to be on the same page with this. Don't say the guy last week didn't make us. This has been a point of emphasis for a few years now.
Yeah.
So I think the white hats all have to be on board and not just say, well, let it go. Let's be concerned about the calls. That's something you get pregame and say, hey, I know what you see on Saturdays and Sundays, but this isn't that.
Oh, no, absolutely. I think that's from the state level on down, that's a big thing, particularly the pants. I think depending on the assigners you talk to or rules interpreters you talk to, it's different. I know for us specifically in the WPIL, Nick is a huge proponent of making sure everything's, tight and the way it should be. So I think that's something that we definitely need to enforce. And I think we do a very good job of it here in District 7, 8, as opposed to some other districts that I've seen. And that's something we definitely want to continue to look at.
Hey, Ship.
Yeah.
Real quick, it's Gordon. So just one more thing on the first down signal. I guess context is important here. A guy makes gets a big gain, gets first down, and he's basically in front of the opponent's team box, holds the ball out forward, drops it slowly, and points kind of right in front of their bench. What's your thought around that? That's a little bit different context.
My thought around that is that would warrant, especially if he's looking at him as he's doing it, then that would be an unsportsmanlike foul.
Yeah, agreed.
If he's in the middle of the field, nobody around him, and he does that, let's talk to him. But if he's on the sideline looking at the bench, drops the ball like that, I definitely think that would warrant an unsportsmanlike foul.
Yeah, I just thought that was an important clarification we should know. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely taunting there. That's definitely taunting. So, we don't want that.
All right. So to that end, I'm just going to show, time's a little tight, so I'm just going to show a couple of videos here on personal fouls. I think we spend a lot of time on it. You can see right there in the middle, and then boom, right there. I don't know if you got a chance to see that right in the middle of the field. Whoops. Watch this kid. Let's see here. Right here, this kid's going to get lit up. Right there. So, those are things we definitely want to have flags on. In the interest of time, I'm going to jump right to the taunting video. Get it pulled up here because I think this is a good conversation piece for us to discuss, because there's a number on here that I think, go to my list here. All right, first one, 58 seconds. Pretty straightforward. Pretty straightforward. Good call. He turns around. He directed it directly at another player. That's a taunting foul. Those are the types of taunting fouls we want to get. Here's another good one. He play a good hit, and then he just, tosses the ball at the other player. Yeah, pretty straightforward taunting foul. Those are the types of fouls we definitely want to get. This next one here, 246. Let's see here. This one here, big hit. I think as the referee, you see a player do that as a referee, you're right there. Say, hey, get your arms down, knock it off, get back to your huddle. I think there's things that we can do there. I don't know if we necessarily need to throw that one. I think we can do a little bit of preventative officiating in that situation, just because he is so far away from all the other players. He's not standing over top of the other player. He's, all the way back. Shut the volume off here. Away from the player. I think that's a good one that we can have a conversation with the kid and talk to the kid. Let's see here, 6:18. Good old YouTube ads. Kid makes a good play. He scores. He just tossed the ball over his shoulder. I think in that situation, the back judge can come in and say, hey, go grab the ball. Or, hey, don't do that. Go, he didn't toss it 50 feet in the air. He just kind of, made a big play, threw it over his shoulder, especially if you're the official that's standing right there. Talk to the kid. If he spikes it, throws it 50 feet up in the air, then I think we can have, that foul. I don't think we need to, get him for that on a play like that. Let's see here, 6:57. This one I think is pretty self-explanatory. Those are the types of unsportsmanlike fouls we definitely want to get a flag on. You know, a kid picks up the pylon, uses that as a prop or a situation like that. Those are the kinds of things we definitely want to get a flag on. Let's see here. 10, 16, 9:50. Yeah. This one, the fact that he stood over top of the player, I think it's a good call. He slammed him down excessively and then decided that he was going to stand over top of him. Even though it was a second, he still stood over top of him. You can see him make the little flex gesture. I think this is a really good call right here. Two other ones that we I don't know how often we see them, but are always topics. The end zone, the old end zone jump. This one here, there's nobody even close to him. You know, that's definitely an unsportsmanlike foul. And we definitely want to get those. A kid jumps that far into the end zone with nobody else around him. You know, we definitely want to have a flag on those. Here's another jump that they flagged, but in my opinion, let's see here. No, this is another one. This is a good catch. We talk about the good catch in the middle of the field. Kid makes a heck of a play. Stands up, just kind of shakes his head. Didn't do anything with the ball. Didn't do, anything excessive. Just made a hell of a play and walked away. That's not an unsportsmanlike foul. I know maybe these guys were mandated to call that a little tighter. I don't know, but as we've discussed, that's not an unsportsmanlike foul, especially if you're the official that's covering. Hey, give me the ball, get the ball from them. Let's move on. Here's one here. An end zone jump that I think is, is Big 78 going to make this tackle? Probably not. But is it in question? 78's right here at 2 yards, and this kid's leaping for the end zone at 2 yards. Now, if 78 was standing back here with 70, absolutely that's a foul, because nobody's going to touch the kid and there's no reason for him to do it. But the fact that this player is this close to him, I'd say let that one go. All right. We're out on time, 7:51. Let me just show a couple of ones that I pulled from this season that I think are pretty good examples. These are like this kid stands over top of him, gives a little flex. That's a really good call from the it's like side judge there. The kid makes a good tackle, stands over top of him, and then there's no reason to do that, and then flexes about it. So definitely want to get those. Here's one that happened in my game I wish we could have back. Watch what happens to the kid at the end of this play. Catch, fake, he's running, about to score, and we have a pretty textbook horse collar tackle. Grabbed him right on the nameplate, whips him down from behind. I mean, that's pretty textbook horse collar tackle. Need to get those. Again, player safety is key. Here's another one for you referees for roughing the passer. Player comes in, there's no reason for him to come in high like that and then drive himself into the player the way he did. I think in my opinion, that one's pretty clear. Let's see this one here. This one here, watching here with the guard tackle. He's getting double teamed, and then he hip checks him over top. You know, that one I could see both ways. You know, the kid's kind of getting his ass beat during that play and then decides to take a little retaliation. But, you know, they've probably been battling hard most of the game. Maybe you have a conversation with them as the umpire, like, hey, there's no reason to do that. And then this one here, I believe this is another blindside block on the return. He's out of bounds and then clearly gets whacked on his way out of bounds and driven out. All right. In the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and stop there. Bill, are you going to have the be able to post the slides? Because there's websites that I have on the PowerPoint. If you guys haven't already, Brian's got a great presentation where he talks about unnecessary roughness and unsportsmanlike contact fouls on YouTube. There's a great, if you're not familiar, the Orange County Football Officials Association out in California. This guy, Mark Andrews, he's probably got 50 videos on YouTube over the years. They've already put out a couple for 2022. Always a great listen to hear some of the things they do philosophically, and they really get into the nuts and bolts and break a lot of plays down. And then the unsportsmanlike fouls that I showed. So hopefully that clears some things up on unsportsmanlike and personal fouls, and happy to take any questions or open it up for discussion.
Really good job, Matt.
Oh, thank you.
Matt, how tight
Yeah,
are we on like hurdling near the goal line specifically? We don't see it called a lot, but that's when that tends to happen. They'll either dive, which I let go, but if they leap over feet first and the kid's not on the ground, elbow or knee, what do you have there? Because you're gonna have a hard time justifying that to a coach, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think hurdling is one of those, again, that falls in the whole player safety. I mean, the reason it's in there is not only can it hurt the person that could be on the receiving end if that kid doesn't clear it, but it also could hurt the kid that's doing the hurdling. So we want to make sure that, you know, that runner's leading with his foot or knee out in front, and make sure that that player, again, isn't you know, has his feet on the ground and isn't contacting the ground with any other points other than his feet.
All right, great, thank you.
Now, hurdling by the goal line is one issue. The other issue by the goal line is aiding the runner. So what do you got to share with us on that?
It's not a personal foul or unsportsmanlike. So, Bill, what are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I come from the philosophy of, if they pull them into the, you know, if you got offensive players pulling them into the end zone, that probably needs to be called. The pushing, I kind of turn my cheek a little bit with, but the pulling into the end zone, I really think we need to get those. Charlie, you have any thoughts on that too, or really anybody's got any thoughts?
Referees in particular, because you're the ones that are most likely going to make that call.
If they're pushing and it's more than one defender involved, it's an attempted block.
A lot of
That's a
plays
bad
are
one.
designed like that way too, especially when a quarterback sneak near the goal line. You'll have the fullback or the running back come up from behind and add themselves to that push, but they're not actually grasping the ball carrier. So in my opinion, they're blocking as well, or they're attempting to push forward.
Yeah, and there's a
John, I
distinction
like-
to be
I
made
like
between
that.
helping the runner and a personal foul.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I mean, if it's a quarterback sneak and that running back comes up and has arms out like this and is pushing, directly on the kid's back, yeah, I think you could probably throw it in that situation. But let's make sure it's clear. I know that's one that I think things have probably loosened up over the years compared to the way it used to be called.
But again, Chip, that's an entirely different category. That's
Exactly.
not a personal foul or UNS. That has its own enforcement. Yeah.
Exactly.
Is Denny Lauria online tonight? I don't know if he is or not. But we had a playoff game. I think it was a quarterfinal. Mars and Newcastle back about 5 or 6 years ago, and we had a hurdle. Dr. Tomai's on. He was on that game with us, right, Larry?
Yeah, John, I remember it. That was the game, Newcastle and Mars.
Yeah, we had a hurdle from about the 3-yard line into the end zone. And I was the umpire on the crew. My line judge made the call, threw his flag, and came running into me and said, talk me off of it. And I said, I can't, because it was the right call. So back to Darren's question a couple of minutes ago, that hurdle, if it's clear that defender has 1 or 2 feet on the ground and no other body parts, you've got to make that call. You have to, because it's a safety issue.
Yeah. I can completely agree. So someone had posted in here on the questions, would you elaborate on the offensive face mask a little if there's time? Yeah, the biggest thing is if somebody, a defender in particular, is grabbing that player's helmet, chin strap, opening, mouthpiece is even in the rule itself. Anything to where there can torque on that neck are things we definitely want to try to get. Ear hole, face mask, what have you.
Matt, yeah, that was me. I had an offensive face mask in a JV game, and he put the ball carrier had his arm up to stiff arm, but he clearly grasped the face mask and turned the helmet probably about 180. And you guys say make it big. I had to call that. They could see it from the stand. The reason I wanted to bring it up was because the R, we know 3 people for JV. So the R in that particular game really wanted me to wave off the flag. And I said, I can't do that. He turned his helmet 180. You can see it from the stands. That's a safety call, but he kept elaborating on, you have to make it big, be really careful, because now these teams are going to want you to call every single thing. And I said, a stiff arm with an open hand, they can do that to the helmet. I just was interested in getting some other opinions because I knew I made the right call, but it was an interesting situation with the crew I was with, like really pushing me towards not calling it.
No, absolutely. If that guy is grasping that face mask and twisting it on that defender, absolutely you want to get this, because there's no difference. If you're going to throw it on the defensive guy, if he did the same thing to that running back, we can't let the running back, do the same thing to the defender as he's just because he's carrying the ball. That face mask foul, it doesn't clarify it has to be in the offense or defense. Again, as you said, he's allowed to stiff arm, open hand, straight arm, no issue. But if he grabs that face mask and starts twisting it of that defender as he's trying to tackle him, absolutely that's a foul and that should be called. And again, it goes back to the whole player safety.
Matt, I think in some cases too, we give the offense a little too much latitude. Like I do a lot of schools regularly at the sub-varsity level, and I tend to call the runner with using the helmet or the crown of the helmet to initiate contact. And the coaches have learned when I'm on the game, it's going to be called if it's a violation. So they've taught their players to keep their heads up a little bit more. I think we have to look at that because they do, especially if you got a running team or a big running back, they lower their head to create contact. That's kind of what we're trying to get out of the game. So I'm not shy about doing that, and I won't make apologies for it because I can explain why it's an issue because of player safety. I think that's one of the things too that maybe we should look at a little bit more closely.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that was a point of emphasis here a couple of years ago, that offensive player running to the line and, trying to gain an advantage by putting his head down and leading with the crown of his helmet. I also know, I think the blocking below the waist by the defenders. There's some great videos out there. I think maybe Brian has one and some others looking at defenders and what they're doing for blocking below the waist. To take out the lead blockers and stuff. So something to definitely keep an eye on, that it's not just, while 95% of the fouls are called on a certain play by, the offense or defense, it doesn't mean that, we shouldn't be paying attention to the opposing side for those same fouls.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
Regarding the discussion that comes up when you do have a major call like that. I know Bobby Joe said she was trying to have a referee talk her out of the call. I think it's very imperative that as an official, you own your position, you know your call, have the backbone to stay with the call when you know it is correct. I think we all want to have a discussion on a major foul that we're either going to eject or have an unsportsmanlike or anything major like that. We definitely need a discussion. But what we don't want to do is have somebody talk you out of it because they're worried about the ramifications going forward in the game. So own your position, know your call. If you see it the whole way through and have the backbone to stay with it.
Exactly, David. And that's a great point, because I think there's other situations and that can work against you as a crew as well. If the coach is watching the tape and like, oh my God, that guy threw a punch, or this happened or that happened, and we don't call it, or especially if we do call it and then wave that flag off. Nowadays with Huddle and YouTube and the federations now, what do you say, by 2025, every high school game is going to be televised. I mean, it's crazy what's happening with a lot of these videos and stuff. So particularly as officials, we're under that microscope. So, great points, Dave.
Hey, Ship, real quick, Bobby Joe, first off, good for you, and thank you for sharing with us. It's one thing if one of your crewmates comes up and had a different angle, had something applicable, something they saw differently. That's one thing. But to just, come up and say, hey, come on, you absolutely did the right thing, in my opinion. Now that being said, you do want to rely on your crewmates to say, hey, what did you see? Here's what I saw from this angle. Let's take another look, let's talk about this. That's one thing. But I just wanted to, my tip of the cap to you for sticking to your guns on that one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, we've hit 6 after 8, so I just want to, and Matt, thank you. That's a great presentation.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Share that PowerPoint with me, and I will put it on our training site. So if anybody wants to pull the training site, download that video, use it during your season, and use these video captions that Matt has at the end of the PowerPoint. Please do so. Anything you find on that training website is open to the public. So use it and abuse it. So thank you. I appreciate everyone getting on today, and I will see you in 2 weeks. We're going to have John Urich talking about don't be that official. Don't be that guy or gal, but don't be that official. So, hey, have a great rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks and gals.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill. Take care.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Matt.
Great job, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Nice
Night,
work.
John Boy.